In this third video, we are going to be talking about securing your IIS server, which means the use of an SSL certificate to encrypt any communication in and out of your server so that it cannot be read by third parties. Now, before we start, I have to say that I cannot tell you where to purchase an SSL certificate. It's not that I can't. I can do a Google search and give you the results that come out. However, I can't really tell you how to choose your SSL certificate provider because you can go super cheap or you can go the expensive route and have better quality of service, but I've never personally purchased an SSL certificate, so I can't recommend any particular one. I would tend to say don't go for cheap. But that is your decision. Now, when we left off on the previous video, we have the IIS server that is working, and I showed you localhost. But I also want to show you that if I go onto the example.com website, I get the exact same site. As a small note, example.com is an example domain, and the only reason it works in this video is a cheat called adding it in the hosts file. Okay, so we have this, and now what we need to do is to add an SSL certificate. This is done on IIS at the server level. So if I click on the server name here, and we go under server certificates, this is normally where you have to add it. Now this means clicking on import and loading up a PFX file. This is provided to you by the certificate provider, so when you choose it, make sure it does support exporting into a PFX format. The certificate file is loaded here, and then you enter the password or secret key for the actual certificate so that the server can encrypt and decrypt the information. By the way, never ever provide this certificate to anyone that you do not trust, and never provide the password either, because either of those is a big security breach and it's very scary. So don't do it, keep it for yourself. Because I don't actually have the ability to generate an SSL certificate for the example.com domain, what I'm going to do is to create a self-signed certificate, which I'm just going to call example.com. Now, a self-signed certificate means you're just generating a key, and this certificate is not authorized or approved by any central authority. This means that now that I've added the SSL certificate and I add it to the domain, so in site bindings, we just do add HTTPS, and we put in example.com, and we choose the SSL certificate. So this is what you need to do. If you choose the HTTPS connection type for the binding, you have the ability to select the certificate. If you have more than one, they all appear here. And when I attempt to open the HTTPS example.com, this would normally show it directly, but because it is a self-signed certificate, I get this warning. So anyways, I have HTTPS example.com, which is showing the actual website. It's also showing me that there's a certificate error, again, self-signed certificate. At this point, because you've purchased the SSL certificate and we've installed it on the server and we've applied it to a binding, it means your website, your domain name is secured. One small note about one of the next steps that we're going to have to take. The very last video of this series about capture on the go, and we are going to have to use a separate subdomain in order to set up the capture on the go and the reverse proxy going to it. This is for a very technical reason, but when you purchase the SSL certificate, it has to be what they call a wildcard domain certificate, meaning you can create anything .example.com or anything .yourdomain.com, and you can have as many as you want. Otherwise, having like www.example.com and cotg.example.com would require two certificates. Wildcard is a bit cheaper in the long run, and it gives you a lot of freedom, so just saying, that's the ideal situation. Now, this is it for the SSL installation. Obviously, there's probably a lot more on the subject if you want to look up information about SSL, the different encryption types that you can use, the different strengths of the encryption. So I invite you to Google for all this stuff. But in the meantime, this is it for just putting it in IIS. In the next video, we'll be looking at the reverse proxy, putting IIS in front of workflow in order to protect it. So see you in a few clicks.